The year 2025 began with Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office and an immediate, aggressive push for his America First agenda. The administration declared a national security crisis at the southern border, promising unprecedented action. Executive orders swiftly dismantled previous asylum policies and expanded expedited removals. The message: the United States was closing its doors. Operation Shield America was launched, casting the border as a front line in a battle for national sovereignty. Supporters hailed the move as a long-overdue fulfillment of promises to secure the nation. Critics warned of a looming humanitarian catastrophe and dangerous executive overreach. The administration mobilized resources on a wartime scale, fusing military power, advanced technology, and sweeping executive authority. The political climate in Washington grew electric with tension as the country braced for a deeply divisive chapter. The border was no longer just a line. It was the epicenter of a national reckoning. As details leaked, it was clear America was about to be transformed by Operation Shield America. Operation Shield America became the largest domestic security mobilization in U.S. history. Over 25,000 National Guard troops joined thousands of Border Patrol agents, backed by a technological arsenal. High-altitude drones, AI-powered cameras, and seismic sensors created a virtual fortress along the border. Data streamed into joint command centers, where AI predicted and tracked crossing attempts in real time. The strategy: intercept and return, rapidly apprehending and deporting migrants at the point of entry. National Guard troops built barriers and manned forward operating bases, militarizing the region. Temporary processing and detention facilities enabled expedited deportations, often within 48 hours. The operation's layered defense, technology, rapid response, and immediate removal marked a stark shift from past strategies. The border became an active, heavily fortified operational zone. Shield America aimed not to manage migration, but to halt it entirely. For migrants, Operation Shield America brought swift, often tragic consequences. The asylum process was suspended. Most were apprehended and deported within hours, with little chance for legal aid. Safer routes vanished under constant surveillance, forcing migrants into deadly terrain: mountains, deserts, and rivers. Deaths from dehydration, heat stroke, and drowning surged as desperation grew. Humanitarian groups faced new obstacles, with aid stations dismantled and volunteers threatened. Families were separated in the chaos, and many were left stranded by smugglers fleeing patrols. The psychological toll was immense. Failed journeys left migrants traumatized and destitute. The border became a place of high-tech enforcement and human suffering. For many, the American dream was replaced by a recurring nightmare. Operation Shield America triggered immediate outrage abroad. Mexico condemned the militarization of the border and the return of deportees to overwhelmed towns, straining bilateral relations. The UN and global human rights groups decried expedited removals as violations of international law, calling the border a humanitarian disaster. US allies in Europe and Canada criticized the operation, warning of American isolationism and a retreat from human rights leadership. The US responded defiantly, accusing critics of hypocrisy and interference. Calls for a UN investigation and talk of sanctions grew, further isolating America on the world stage. The diplomatic crisis deepened, transforming a domestic policy into an international flashpoint. The world watched with alarm as the US challenged the foundations of humanitarian law. At home, Operation Shield America deepened national divisions. Supporters saw it as a promise kept and a victory for border security, celebrating the drop in crossings. In conservative states, approval soared. Many felt safer and vindicated. Opponents, especially in liberal cities, protested, calling the policy cruel and un-American. Vigils and demonstrations highlighted migrant deaths and demanded an end to the operation. Media coverage split along partisan lines, with each side reinforcing its own narrative. The border crisis became a central issue for the 2026 midterms. Democrats vowed to defund the operation and restore asylum laws. Republicans doubled down on law and order. The battle for the border became a proxy war for America's soul. The outcome of the next election could decide the fate of millions. The fallout from Operation Shield America now threatens America's global standing. A coalition at the UN proposed sanctions against US officials, and international boycotts signaled declining American influence. The administration's defiance emboldened other nationalist governments, eroding post-war international norms. Long-standing alliances frayed as partners weighed their interests against human rights commitments. At home, polarization intensified, with protests and fears of government crackdowns on dissent. Disinformation clouded public debate, making consensus elusive. The border remained the nation's primary battleground. America stood at a crossroads. Could it lead the world while pursuing policies widely condemned as inhumane? The long-term costs to the economy, diplomacy, and national identity remained unknown. The decisions made at the border would shape the nation's future for generations.